outside? Hmm? Yeah, okay. Let's go for a walk. As a child, I was just an anxious kid. Bullied and maybe not fitting in very well, and just trying to survive and struggle through childhood is hard enough, and through school. Night terrors, nightmares, sleepwalking, all these things were popping up. And I remember, I'm not sure how much my family delved into. I remember being I brought to a doctor and it talked about it, or brought to the hospital, and it being tried to address it. And I think the one thing that sticks to me is like, well, they'll grow out of it, right? I think very often when you feel like an underdog, sometimes you fight for the little guy, right? The people in need, that you wish everyone treated people like this, so I'm gonna treat people this way. So I think that was one of the things that drove me into the service. So getting into the job, and then obviously the jobs, you think you know what it's going to be like, and then it just piles on from there, right? So then I started experiencing more anxiety and panic attacks. I remember having a panic attack at work, at the kitchen table. You're just eating dinner with everyone like you always have, and then it washes over you, and you're like, what is going on? What is and I had to leave work and go home. I had personal stuff going on, and relationships that were not going well, and a major relationship that failed, and I was just attributing to that, and not necessarily the whole picture, right? And it was dealing with it in the present moment, when really it was the past leading to the present. For me, that breakdown of that major relationship, I had convinced myself that I can't handle this. This is it. I'm done. Right. So, it's the winter time. I remember driving to this out of the way location, and parked my car and left everything in the car. Took my jacket off, my hat, my keys. I didn't need all this stuff anymore. Right. Left my wallet, and I was just going to take a walk and go down to the lake and find a spot in the water, and eventually you'll just come to the elements. Right. As I'm walking down there with this in my mind, someone walking the path came the other way, and I think they said something like, "Oh, nice day, isn't it?" Something, snapped in me, in a good way, where it sort of brought me a bit closer to reality again, and thought, you should just go to the hospital. That small voice in my head. And I remember calling home and saying to my folks, like, I'm going to the hospital. This is what's going on with me. And of course they were shocked, and I did. I went in and checked myself in, and then I spent a week in the hospital. I met a counselor, and I was lucky enough that it was an instant recognition that I liked this person and trusted them and got along with them, and we connected, and then it was 13 to 14 years now of getting through things, and I owe him my life multiple times over. I remember him saying to me that I don't fix you, right? I just walk this path with you. And you have to make the change. You have to do the work, right? There's this personal ownership of and I think it's hard if we pin it on everyone else to say, you need to do this for me, you need to do that for me, it's your fault, I'm not getting better because of you. It's like, well, you have to own it, right? You need scaffolding. People need to scaffold you and support you in the path. And then as you get better, just like you would mentor a new recruit, you scaffold them. I had to take the things that he gave me and work with them into my life, but you're still dealing with the stresses and the fact that you are mentally ill. Listen to you time and time again. So it's a long slog, and I think there's relapses, and they set you back. Medication was the thing for me, and meditating regularly. Those two things, everything changed. And then sleep somewhere else at night. Going back to Kansas City, and I love you. Meditation physically changes your brain, just like PTSD would physically change your brain. I don't believe I had PTSD. There was work-related things that piled on and made my issues worse. It was definitely work-related, but not PTSD. So as soon as the medication was the right amount and the right one, and I started meditating regularly, everything changed. Going back to Kansas City. At work, there's really just the mentality of you knew what you were getting into, or you don't. You read about it, you can hear stories, but you really don't understand, right? So And that's part of the awakening too when you finally get into the job. And if you're not told how to process that, then obviously the things compound. But people just didn't understand. Like, you can't pin it on them as trying to be bad people. They were just trying to do the best they could, trying to figure out the world like we all are. So I don't hold any, negative thoughts towards them. But are we a family, or do we talk behind people's backs? What are we? Or are we a dysfunctional family? And I myself, admittedly, I've been part of saying and doing things that are not helpful to people, that were harmful. And I think we need to acknowledge the mistakes we've made, and either you can ruminate on them and be down about it, or you can actually step up, try to amend, and try to make a difference, right? Because every day you get up and do the same thing, you're going to have the same day. If you're going to change your diet, you shouldn't try and run the Boston Marathon tomorrow. How about just don't have bread with every meal? That's day one and that week. And then you just change one or two things, and eventually, you start to really tweak things for you, right? And I think part of it is just the intermixing of generations, and I think the younger generation is just more aware in general, whether they're getting it in school or whether they're getting it from their parents. I think just, the wealth of information is at your fingertips, of the whole world of information. So I think the conversation is happening there, right? And there's obviously with the Mental Health Commission of Canada, and they're putting out educational material, and then you've got Bell Let's Talk. So there's these major corporations that are speaking up and doing some good with their voice. So I don't have life figured out, but I feel like I'm starting to figure it out, and at 42 as opposed to never. And again, getting back to helping people, if I can help people figure it out at 20, imagine how it would be they've got 20 more years, right? So I'm just grateful now that I'm able to be that place where I can look back, and I think I can just be empathetic and understanding, and there's more of a love there of just for people in general. Self-love leads to love of others.